Alright, the next thing we're going to learn is the properties of parallelograms, talking about their angles. And so in this parallelogram, A, B, C, D, what we're going to look at today is at the opposite angles, so A and C. So angle A is congruent to angle C, and also B and D are also congruent. And so the third thing that we're going to learn about parallelograms is that the opposite angles are congruent. So just like before, I'll do the first example, you copy it in your notes, and then you do the second example on your own. Alright, so we just learned that the opposite angles are equal. So if I know that this is 40, that means that this angle is going to be 40. And I didn't talk about it up here, but in geometry we show that with an arc. So these two angles are congruent. So what we say is now we write a little m with the angle symbol S. So the measure of angle S is going to equal the same as the measure of angle Q, because the opposite angles are congruent. So we know that the measure of angle S equals 40 degrees. Try 1B on your own, and again I want to see a geometric sentence as your answer. Alright, let's look at our next property. Here we have this parallelogram again. We'll call it ABCD. We just talked about the opposite angles being equal. So that would mean angle A is congruent to angle C, and that angle B would be congruent to angle D. Well, the next thing we're going to learn is that the angles that are next to each other, so angle A and angle D, they add up to equal 180 degrees. And the same is true with angles B and C. They add up to equal 180 degrees. And so you can see that here we had yellow and green made 180. And so it would make sense again that this yellow and this green would also make 180. So angle A plus angle B also equals 180 degrees. And the same is true over here. Angle C and angle D will add up to 180 degrees. And so this becomes our fourth property. Now the angles that are next to each other, we call them consecutive angles. And that just means the angle that comes after each other. So here as I walk around, A to B, they're consecutive. They come right after each other. B to C, and so they share a side, and so whenever they share a side like that, and so you can see I circled B and C, we would consider those to be consecutive angles. And so we say consecutive angles add to 180 degrees. So let's take a look at an example. Alright, let's look at the example. And let's go ahead and call this one 2A, and this one 2B. And so here we have 79 degrees. Here we have the question mark. Let's go ahead and change the question mark to X. So we're going to find what the measure of angle K is. And so like we just talked about, these two angles that are next to each other, these consecutive angles, add up to 180. So all we're going to do is take 79 plus X equals 180. And now we just solve that equation. And so we just minus 79 from both sides. And so that goes away and we get x equals, need to borrow, so we get 1, 0, 1. So x equals 101 degrees. And so let's write a sentence that says the measure of angle K is equal to 101 degrees. So I want you to try 2B now, but I'll give you a little hint. We're going to look at these two angles. And what we just learned is that these two angles will always add up to 180 degrees. Alright, the fifth thing we're going to learn about parallelograms is that the diagonals, so if I draw a diagonal here, what happens with the diagonal is since these are parallel lines, this creates a pair of alternate interior angles. And so that means that this is going to be congruent to this. And also this will be congruent to this. So the fifth thing that we need to know about the parallelograms are that the diagonals create alternate interior angles, and alternate interior angles are congruent. So let's look at an example. So this will be 3A, 3B. Alright, so we have our diagonal, and it made these alternate interior angles. And so that means that this is 28. So that means that this is also 28. And so we're going to actually name the angle because it's good practice. And so this 28 is in this angle here. So when you name an angle, you have to use the three letters on this one because I can't say angle F. If I said angle F, I wouldn't know if I was talking about this top one, this bottom one, or the whole thing. And so you actually have to use three letters. And so we're going to say the measure of angle, and you start at one of the ends, you go towards the middle, and you finish at the other end. The measure of angle DFE is equal to 28 degrees. So again, I want to see this complete geometric sentence and try to show the same markings that I did when you do 3B. Alright, the last example, 4A and 4B. What we're going to do is we're going to look at this, and you're going to see that this here is our diagonal, and we just talked about it, that these create alternate interior angles. So what I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and call this X instead of the question mark. The alternate interior angles are equal. So here's the one angle, alternate interior, and that is alternate interior with this angle. So these two things are the same. So you can go ahead and call this one X. And the reason I want to put that X there is because now you'll notice that I have these three angles and they make a triangle. And one of the things that we know about a triangle is if you add up the three angles, they always equal 180. So now we can solve this equation. Combine the 55 and 35, and that gives us 90. And now we just solve the equation by moving the 90 to the other side, so you minus the 90. And so we're going to finish with x equals 90. And so we go back up here to that question mark. It wanted that angle. And so, like we practiced in the last example, we want to name it proper. And so this would be MKJ. So the measure of angle MKJ is equal to 90 degrees. So try 4B on your own. When you're done, bring me your notes.